I couldn't believe my luck. I had flown halfway across the world for New Year's, dragging my slightly skeptical cousin along, and somehow ended up in what people here called the Enchanted Kingdom. My first thought was, Disneyland, California, but make it tropical. The bright sun, the humidity, the smell of fried banana, everything screamed paradise. If paradise came with a hint of chaos and a questionable public restroom situation. The entrance alone set the tone. A giant castle loomed, slightly less pristine than the one in Anaheim, but with its own charm, like a castle that had survived a few typhoons and several generations of enthusiastic decorators. A huge banner greeted visitors. "Happy New Year! Enjoy the magic!" I laughed because the word magic here seemed to include everything from the park mascots sweating profusely in oversized costumes to the vendors selling kwek-kwek on the sidelines. Immediately, I noticed the difference. In California, the line for tickets moves like a well-oiled machine. Here, the line moved, well, let's say it moved at its own tropical rhythm. People were chatting, kids were running into each other, and somewhere behind me, an uncle was arguing with the cashier about a discounted adult ticket that may or may not have been valid. I watched, amused, sipping on a coconut water I'd bought from a street vendor outside the park. Hydration and minor chaos, all in one. Walking in, I couldn't help but notice the first ride. In Disneyland, you get neatly labeled signs and shiny rails. Here, the Space Adventure ride looked like someone had assembled parts from 3 different countries. The ride operator, who doubled as a ride photographer and occasional security guard, was waving at kids like he was hosting a game show. I could see the resemblance to the California original, but the Filipino version had its own personality. A little creaky, a little unpredictable, and somehow much more fun. I wandered further and stumbled upon the parade. In California, parades are synchronized, every float is perfect, and every performer has undergone at least 3 years of dance training. Here, the parade started with a marching band that seemed to be figuring out the music as they went. The princesses waved enthusiastically, some smiling, some focusing hard on not tripping over their long dresses. At one point, a mascot tripped spectacularly and rolled into a cotton candy stand. The crowd gasped, then laughed, and I laughed so hard I spilled some of my Halo Halo, a Filipino dessert I had grabbed earlier, onto my sundress. Worth it, I thought. Speaking of Halo Halo, the food was a revelation. California's Disneyland is fine. You can get churros, popcorn, turkey legs, but it's predictable. Here the smells assaulted you from all angles. Grilled corn, sweet sugarcane juice, fried squid, and something that might have been called mystery rice. I tried the mystery rice. Honestly, it tasted like joy, confusion, and a little coconut. The street food in this enchanted kingdom wasn't just a snack. It was an experience. I realized that while Disneyland sells nostalgia and perfection, this park sells chaos, laughter, and snacks that somehow belong in your Instagram story. I decided to test my courage and went on the roller coaster. In California, I'd prepared myself, read every safety sign, and even rehearsed screaming. Here, the coaster's line moved slowly because people were taking selfies. The operator paused the ride to greet a family friend, and there were 3 minor technical hiccups before we even started. But once we did, I was screaming for different reasons. The ride was fast, twisty, and somehow managed to feel like it was hugging the jungle. I looked over at my cousin, whose eyes were wide, mouth open, and hair flying in all directions. "This is nothing like Disneyland," I yelled. She screamed back, "And I love it." The kids were everywhere. Disneyland has kids, of course, but here, the children seemed to have absorbed the humidity into their very souls. They were fearless, laughing at heights, climbing railings, and sometimes darting into the middle of rides while parents shouted behind them. At first I panicked, but then I realized that part of the charm, the park wasn't about controlled entertainment. It was about energy and life. It was messy, a little unsafe, and yet completely alive. I wandered to the haunted house attraction next. In California, haunted houses are carefully designed, with timed scares, actors rehearsed for months, and fog machines that work perfectly. Here, the haunted house was a small building with uneven floors, creaking doors, and actors in masks that may have been borrowed from a high school play. The first ghost jumped out and screamed something in Tagalog. I screamed back, not knowing whether it was fear or excitement. Then another ghost waved politely and asked if I wanted a souvenir. I left laughing, slightly confused, and with a small plastic keychain in hand. Disneyland doesn't hand out keychains mid-scare. Lesson learned. Music played everywhere. Disney has orchestrated tracks, perfectly looped, creating moods for every land. Here, a karaoke booth spilled into the main walkway. A street performer was drumming on empty buckets, and someone's phone blasted Tala in a loop. The park was alive with spontaneous sound, every corner offering something different, a sensory explosion. I found myself dancing with a stranger in a rice hat, sipping a soda, and waving at a man selling grilled squid. Nobody cared that my moves were terrible, because nobody cared about perfection here. I discovered the Ferris wheel next. In California, the Ferris wheel gives you a neat view of the park. Here, it gave you a panoramic shot of the surrounding city, the mountains in the distance, and an endless stream of jeepneys below. At the top, I took a deep breath of hot, humid air, feeling every part of this park. Disneyland is beautiful, organized, and magical. The Enchanted Kingdom of the Philippines? It's chaotic, loud, full of life, smells, laughter, and 1,000 tiny adventures waiting for you. By the time the fireworks started, I had officially embraced it. They weren't as synchronized as Disneyland's, and some fireworks went slightly off target, but the crowd cheered anyway. Some waving sparklers, kids dancing, and even a stray dog ran through the crowd. I laughed, clapped, and realized that magic isn't about perfection, it's about joy. And here, joy was abundant, messy, and sometimes sticky from the spilled halo. At midnight, I toasted with a small bottle of soda I had grabbed from a vendor. My cousin cheered beside me. "Happy New Year!" we shouted over the music, laughter, and random shouts in Tagalog. I had expected Disneyland-level perfection. Instead, I got life, Filipino-style. Loud, sweaty, chaotic, sticky, delicious life. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I left that night exhausted but exhilarated. My sundress was sticky, my hair frizzed from the humidity, my feet a little sore from walking over uneven pavement. But my heart was full. Disneyland California is a dream, yes. But the Enchanted Kingdom in the Philippines? That's a living, breathing, smiling, shouting, singing, occasionally screaming adventure that you'll remember forever. I promised myself I'd be back. Next year, I'd try every ride, eat all the street food, and maybe even attempt the karaoke. As I walked out, I glanced back at the castle, lights twinkling in the tropical night. I whispered to myself, "Disney who?" and laughed, realizing I had found a different kind of magic, Filipino magic. The next morning, I woke up to the sounds of roosters, honking jeepneys, and the faint sizzling of street food vendors already prepping for the day. Disneyland might have gentle music, people calmly sipping coffee in neat cafes, but here, even the morning was a sensory roller coaster. I gulped down a cup of Barako coffee, strong enough to make my heart race like I'd been on the space adventure coaster again, and headed back to the park. My mission today was simple: explore every corner I missed, including the rides that seemed too scary yesterday, and the snack stalls I had been eyeing like a hawk. First stop, the river cruise. I expected something serene, like in California, with soft music and polite narration. What I got was a boat slightly smaller than expected, paddled by a man who seemed to be improvising his own commentary. "This is the river where, something happened and the water is wet," he said. I laughed so hard I nearly fell overboard. Behind me, kids were squealing, some trying to catch plastic ducks floating in the water. I realized that storytelling in Filipino style isn't about accuracy. It's about entertainment, enthusiasm, and improvisation. Next, I discovered the jungle safari, which promised exotic animals. In Disneyland, you might see a mechanical elephant or a stuffed lion. Here, there was a real goat, a chicken, and a small pig named Mabuhay. I leaned down to pet Mabuhay, and the pig snorted at me like it knew I had just come from California. Tourists were feeding the animals snacks, and one local kid yelled, "Don't feed the goats! They bite your fingers, ah!" I looked at my hands. Safe. For now. Then came the arcade section, which was basically a room filled with blinking lights, the sounds of coins clinking, and prizes stacked haphazardly. In California, you might win a stuffed toy after skill and patience. Here, I won a small plastic crab after hitting a target once and got handed a giant bag of candy anyway. Why? I asked the attendant. She smiled. Because everyone is happy, ma'am. Filipino arcade logic. Generosity disguised as chaos. Of course, I couldn't resist the snacks. Yesterday's Halo had been divine, but today I tried something called Choco Fried Siopao. My cousin dared me. It's sweet, it's savory, it's life, she said. And she was right. The combination of chocolate and steamed bun was absurd, confusing my taste buds, yet somehow incredibly comforting. It hit me then. The Philippines doesn't do things half-heartedly. If it can surprise you, it will. If it can delight, it will in the most unexpected way. By midday, I wandered into the cultural village section, which in Disneyland would have been quaint, overly sanitized, and perfectly photographed for Instagram. Here, it was alive. Artisans wove baskets in front of tourists, kids chased chickens, elders sat on benches telling stories in rapid Tagalog while gesturing wildly. I tried to follow along, but I caught only bits and pieces. I nodded, smiled, and laughed at the right moments, feeling like I was part of a living, breathing painting. Then the karaoke stage caught my eye. In California, Disney has occasional musical performances. Here, it was a full-blown competition. A teenage boy belted out "My Way" with a passion that would make Sinatra proud, or scared, depending on your perspective. The crowd cheered, tossing coins on the stage for luck. I realized karaoke isn't just entertainment. It's a community sport, a test of courage, and a chance to earn random respect. I clapped along, shouting encouragement like I belonged, and felt like a temporary local. Rides beckoned again. I tried the pirate ship, which swung wildly, creaked in ways that made me question physics, and sent my cousin screaming in both terror and delight. "This is better than California!" she yelled, hair sticking to her forehead. I agreed, laughing. Disneyland may have safety and precision, but here, there was thrill, unpredictability, and the delightful possibility of minor chaos. Then, I noticed the souvenir shops. In California, every keychain, mug, and shirt is branded and perfect. Here, everything was colorful, loud, and slightly mismatched. A stuffed toy might have 4 arms, a t-shirt could have a typo, and hats screamed slogans I couldn't fully translate. I loved it. It wasn't perfect, it was real. I left with a stack of souvenirs that made 0 sense in terms of branding but were perfect in terms of storytelling. Mid-afternoon, I decided to explore the Adventure Zone. In Disneyland, that might involve rope courses or water rides. Here, it involved slides carved from bamboo, swings dangling over shallow streams, and an occasional pig roaming freely. Kids were climbing on everything, screaming instructions to each other. Adults were laughing, trying to keep up, or recording the chaos on their phones. I joined in, sliding down a bamboo chute, screaming, laughing, and almost losing my hat. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and ridiculously fun. Food called again. I couldn't resist Turon, a banana wrapped in spring roll and caramelized sugar. I bought 3. Then, from another stall, I saw grilled chicken intestines and a strange drink called sagot gulaman, which was like sweet, chewy jelly liquid heaven. I thought I was full, but my curiosity, and probably my stomach, demanded tasting everything. I realized the Philippines is a country that celebrates indulgence, not in moderation, but in joyful, chaotic, street-level abundance. I spent hours wandering, trying rides, eating snacks, taking photos, and interacting with locals. Every day in California, Disneyland felt like a controlled dream. Here, it was a living, breathing story I was part of. And part of the charm? Nobody cared about perfection. Someone might spill, a ride might stop, food might be too sweet, and you just laugh it off. Life was messy, yes, but infinitely more fun. By late afternoon, clouds gathered. A tropical drizzle began. In California, this might trigger alerts, ride shutdowns, and guest evacuation. Here, it barely caused a ripple. Visitors pulled out umbrellas, Children splashed in puddles, and vendors covered snacks with plastic sheets. I laughed, realizing that rain wasn't a disaster. It was a bonus adventure. My cousin and I danced in the drizzle, got our hair wet, our clothes slightly sticky from street food, and felt completely alive. The day ended with another small parade, this one improvised for the rainy weather. People waved, mascots ran under umbrellas, and a stray dog somehow became the star. I cheered louder than anyone, completely swept up in the joyful chaos. Disneyland California is organized, magical, and perfect. The Enchanted Kingdom in the Philippines? It's unpredictable, messy, sticky, sometimes terrifying, and overwhelmingly joyful. And by the end of day 2, I knew this adventure would stay with me forever. Exhausted, sticky, and very happy, I walked back to my small hotel, carrying souvenirs, snacks, and the kind of memories that couldn't fit in a single photo. I realized something essential. The Enchanted Kingdom isn't just a park. It is a celebration of life, Filipino-style. Chaos is part of the magic. Laughter is mandatory. And even in the rain, even in the messy streets, the spirit of joy is inescapable. That night, I fell asleep listening to the distant sounds of the city, street vendors calling out, karaoke spilling from nearby homes, and the faint echo of a drum from the park. Disneyland California had perfected magic. This Enchanted Kingdom? It had perfected happiness, unpredictability, and the unapologetic joy of being alive. The final day arrived, and it was New Year's Eve. I had expected Disneyland-style fireworks, a neatly scheduled countdown, and polite applause. What I got was something completely different. Chaos, noise, laughter, and a million unexpected moments all rolled into one. I joined my cousin in the heart of the park. People were everywhere. Families, teenagers, toddlers, and the occasional stray dog wearing a party hat. Vendors sold sparklers, barbecue sticks, kakanin, and neon sunglasses shaped like fireworks. The air was thick with smoke from cooking fires and incense, mixed with the scent of sweet pastries. I inhaled deeply and laughed. Disneyland California had smells, yes, but nothing compared to this fragrant, chaotic carnival of life. The rides were running, some partially covered in streamers, some being repaired on the spot, and some making squeaky noises that added to the atmosphere. Kids screamed with joy, adults laughed at their own failures on roller coasters, and couples posed for selfies, holding sparklers like weapons of joy. I tried to keep up with my cousin, hopping on every ride she dragged me to, including the bamboo slide, the pirate ship, and the teacup spin ride that made me question gravity. As the afternoon faded into evening, the countdown preparations began. I thought there would be music, speakers, and a giant screen. Instead, there were drums, improvised fireworks, and random karaoke songs blaring from every corner. I realized then that Filipinos didn't need coordination. They had enthusiasm, and enthusiasm always wins. We joined a small group dancing near the center stage. Everyone was clapping, singing, shouting, and laughing. I grabbed a sparkler and tried to make it twirl like in the movies, but instead it sputtered and shot sparks straight at my hair. I panicked, my cousin screamed, and a group of kids nearby laughed so hard they almost fell over. I realized this was perfect. New Year chaos at its finest, messy, dangerous, hilarious, and unforgettable. Then came the fireworks. Oh, the fireworks. In Disneyland, fireworks are carefully choreographed, synchronized to music, and shot from precise points. Here, fireworks shot up, sideways, and sometimes straight into the ground. One rocket went behind me, nearly scaring a chicken I didn't even know was there. Another burst into pink and green sparks, illuminating a family eating street food. I clutched my sparkler, eyes wide, laughing uncontrollably. Every explosion felt like a personal celebration, messy, dangerous, and ridiculously fun. Food was everywhere. I tried lechon, halo halo, quack quack, and more street snacks than I could count. I even bought Baloo on a dare. My cousin and I stood in line with locals, watching as a father explained to his child how to eat it properly. I hesitated, took a bite, and actually liked it. Filipino cuisine was shocking, delightful, and utterly unapologetic, much like the country itself. As the clock neared midnight, people gathered around open areas, some climbing on walls or rooftops for a better view. the local DJ started shouting the countdown in Tagalog. Tatlo, dalawa, isa. I joined in, my voice blending with thousands of others. Everyone cheered, fireworks went off, and I realized that no matter how messy or chaotic this celebration was, it was full of heart. Confetti filled the air, sparklers twirled wildly, and people hugged, laughed, and threw rice into the crowd for luck. I got some on my hair, my shoes, and even inside my backpack. It didn't matter. I laughed until my stomach hurt. Disneyland California might have perfect smiles, but this was real joy. Loud, messy, sticky, and entirely Filipino. Later, a group of kids invited me to play a game of street volleyball near the park's main entrance. I protested at first, worried about embarrassing myself. Then I remembered, when in the Philippines, embrace the chaos. I jumped in, barely hitting the ball, tripping over my own feet, and somehow scoring a point. The kids cheered, high-fived me, and even gave me a small mango as a prize. I couldn't stop laughing. By the early hours, I wandered toward the park's exit, carrying souvenirs, snacks, and sparkler remnants. The city outside was still alive. Street vendors, jeepneys honking, karaoke spilling from homes, and people still laughing. I realized that New Year in the Philippines isn't about perfection or planning. It's about being together, enjoying the chaos, and laughing as much as possible before the next day arrives. I reflected on my entire trip. Enchanted Kingdom wasn't just a theme park. It was a lesson. A lesson in joy, unpredictability, resilience, and fun. Disneyland might have magical castles, perfectly timed rides, and flawless crowds. The Philippines had all of that, but with flavor, noise, food on your hands, smiles despite floods, and laughter so loud it could wake the whole neighborhood. As I sat on a curb, tired, sticky, and full of sugar and fried food, I realized something crucial. The Philippines doesn't just give you memories. It gives you stories you'll tell forever. Stories of falling off rides, dancing in the rain, eating snacks too sweet to exist, and celebrating life in ways that no carefully curated theme park ever could. The sunrise came slowly, and the city woke up, slightly chaotic as usual. Vendors cleaned up, children chased dogs, and I took one last sip of Sagot Gulaman, thinking about how I'd spent New Year's in the most unpredictably delightful way possible. Disneyland California gave me dreams. The Philippines gave me life. And as I boarded the plane home, covered in confetti and sticky from snacks, I laughed out loud. I had learned the ultimate lesson. Sometimes, chaos is magic, unpredictability is joy, and a little mess makes everything unforgettable. And somewhere in the distance, I could still hear fireworks, laughter, and the unmistakable sound of a country celebrating life, Filipino style.